Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever felt completely torn between, strictly enforcing the rules and just being human? Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to tackle one of the absolute toughest tightropes you will ever have to walk as a manager. We're talking about the really delicate art of being a balanced leader, specifically how to navigate the incredibly complex waters of discipline and compassion. Now, in high-stakes environments like healthcare and caregiving, the stakes are, well, they're ultra-realistic. When people's well-being and physical safety are literally on the line, finding that perfect equilibrium between bringing down the hammer and showing genuine empathy can feel, honestly, incredibly daunting. But mastering this? It isn't just some nice-to-have management skill. It is absolutely essential for your survival.
So before we get completely into the weeds, let's actually just summarize today's lesson right up front. Here's the absolute bottom line. Great leaders balance firm accountability with empathetic support. That's the secret sauce. You simply cannot just be the strict enforcer walking around the halls with a clipboard, and on the flip side, you can't just be the lenient best friend who lets absolutely everything slide. Effective leadership requires both of these pillars. If one is missing, I promise you, the entire structure of your team is going to start to crack. So from here, we're going to unpack exactly how you can actually achieve this dynamic balance in your day-to-day operations.
Because, right, the crucial question is this: which approach do you actually choose in the heat of the moment? I mean, picture it. When a crisis hits on a really chaotic floor, patient alarms are ringing, tensions are sky high, and boom, a critical mistake is suddenly made. How do you decide your immediate reaction? Are you torn between being the rigid boss who steps in to enforce the rules and being a supportive human who just wants to put an arm around a really struggling employee? That intense tension is exactly what we are going to resolve for you in the rest of this lesson. Now that we know our ultimate goal, let's break down the roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the core conflict of discipline versus compassion. Then we'll outline exactly when to apply each one. After that, we'll walk through a highly actionable step-by-step approach, and finally we'll wrap up with a powerful coaching insight.
All right, Section 1. Discipline versus compassion, the core conflict. This right here introduces the central dichotomy that every single manager faces every day on the floor.
Very often, these two concepts get viewed as complete and total opposites. I mean, discipline represents firm accountability, right? It's the unwavering rules that keep your facility running safely. While compassion offers empathetic support. It's the understanding that, hey, we are all fallible human beings. But to maintain both high operational standards and a really healthy, motivated team morale, these two, they aren't enemies. They're basically dance partners. They are two vital tools in the exact same toolkit, and knowing intuitively which one to pull out is exactly what separates an average manager from a truly great leader. That brings us to Section 2, when to apply discipline and establish boundaries. Because there are specific, critical moments where a leader absolutely must hold the line, no hesitation. Let's look really closely at these triggers. We're talking repeated tardiness, safety violations, policy breaches, and poor documentation. Now notice that vital word repeated when it comes to tardiness. If a caregiver is chronically late, they are leaving the previous shift exhausted and totally stranded. Think about a nurse who's just pulled a grueling 12-hour shift and now they're forced to stay even longer just because their replacement didn't bother to show up on time again. That builds massive toxic resentment within your ranks. And when we talk about a deliberate policy breach or compromised safety, like say willfully skipping a crucial step in a patient transfer or just ignoring hygiene protocols, that requires immediate, firm accountability. In these moments, discipline isn't about being mean or power-hungry. Not at all. It is about fiercely protecting your standards and the physical safety of your entire environment.
But then we have to pivot. Section 3. When to apply compassion, the human element. Because as leaders, we aren't managing robots on an assembly line. We are leading real people with real, messy lives.
And this brilliantly illustrates that there are times to absolutely soften your approach. Consider things like first-time mistakes or temporary life challenges. If you have a dedicated, incredibly hardworking team member who is suddenly distracted because, say, their kid is really sick at home, or maybe they make an error out of sheer confusion because a brand new charting protocol just wasn't explained to them properly, bringing down the hammer of discipline in that moment is entirely counterproductive. Think about it. The caregiver who is normally super diligent but suddenly starts missing minor details because they're going through a massive personal crisis, they desperately need your grace and empathy right then, not a formal write-up. Giving compassion here doesn't mean you're lowering your standards. It actually builds incredibly deep trust, loyalty, and long-term retention.
So how do we actually operationalize all of this? We're moving into the climax of the explainer now. Section 4. Our step-by-step approach, the practical playbook.
Let's walk through this exact sequence. Step 1. Identify the behavior. Stop and take a purely objective look at exactly what happened. Strip away all the emotion, ignore the floor gossip, just look at the facts. Step 2. Check the context. This is your crucial filter. Was this a malicious breach of established policy, or was it an honest slip-up due to extreme burnout? Step 3. Communicate clearly with expectations. Whether you're correcting a severe safety violation or offering a shoulder to someone who's really struggling, remember that clarity is kindness. Let them know exactly where they stand and what specific actions need to happen next. Step 4. Document the conversation. In healthcare and caregiving, the golden rule absolutely always applies. If it isn't documented, it literally didn't happen. Protect yourself and your team by keeping a clear, factual record. And finally, Step 5. Follow up consistently. Make sure the behavior or the situation is actually improved. You can't just have the tough conversation and vanish back into your office. By using this precise sequence, you completely remove the guesswork from the equation. Now, as we start to wrap things up, I want to prepare you for the absolute most profound takeaway of this explainer. Section 5, Coaching Insight, our final takeaway. This entire framework we've been talking about builds to one vital truth. Discipline without compassion demotivates. Compassion without discipline erodes standards. Just take a second to let that really sink in. If you rely entirely on discipline, you're going to break your team's spirit. You'll be treating them like cogs in a machine, and they will inevitably lose all their motivation and just burn out. But if you lean entirely on compassion, if you're simply too afraid to have those really hard conversations, well, your operational standards will completely collapse. And in caregiving, that literally puts lives at risk. It is a necessary daily balancing act. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. As you reflect on your own personal leadership style today, which side of this equation do you naturally lean toward? And what is one conscious step you can take on your very next shift to finally strike that perfect balance?